location?
I grew up about 40 miles from here, so I'm quite familiar with Belfast, but I also went to university here, lived here for a while, worked here quite a lot, still work here quite a lot. So this particular location, the Titanic Quarter here, is kind of a fairly newly developed area. It was, as you see, the site of Harland and Wolff shipyards years ago, and in a way that I suppose only Belfast or Northern Ireland could, it's taken a sad situation of a shipwreck and turned it into a positive. This area is really getting built up. There's lots of exciting stuff going on. With things like the SSE Arena down the road, the Titanic building, with the Titanic studios where Game of Thrones and City of Ember and lots of other things were shot. So I've probably worked here quite a bit in recent years in the arena and doing shows at the Titanic building and so on. So yeah, so it's an exciting part of Belfast, and it's a good place to work.
And the cranes, the two Harland and Wolff cranes, are absolutely iconic parts of the landscape, aren't they?
They are. If you see nearly any reference to Belfast, you'll see the two cranes in it, you know, and they've always kind of been there in the background and kind of coming more to the fore now as the city's moved into this area, and people are starting to socialise here and tourists starting to come here. So yeah, they're a great feature.
Can you just tell me about how you first got interested in lighting? You know, what initially interested you? What made you think about you know, going that way as a career?
Yeah, well, I started in school. I was in the choir in a play.
Oh, really?
And I saw the guys doing the lighting, and I thought that's more me than the choir, which I would say most people listening to me thought as well. With a couple of great mentors, great teachers, a guy called Pat Mooney and Sean Hollywood, and who would encourage not just the people on stage, and there were a lot of good actors and so on come out of the locality, but people backstage, and we had a great legacy of people that have come from that. Himself, Kieran Bagnall, for example, very well known theatre circles. Other people, Declan McConaughey worked for BBC, so on. Lots of people have come out of it, so it was a great place. From there, I suppose I would have made contact with Joe Canavan, who worked in RTE, was one of the people who came out of that legacy. And Joe had just left the Eurovision at the time, the '95 Eurovision. So I went down to meet him, got a tour of RTE, and I'd had quite an interest in television. So going to RTE that time kind of captured my interest. They were canvassing for people at the time, which I hadn't done for a long time. I applied and was lucky enough to get the job, and then went on to work in BBC in Belfast, and then eventually Television Centre in London, back here to Belfast for a brief period, and then went freelance. So yeah, so it's been a kind of an evolving process, but always a big interest in television.
Any reason why television particularly interested you?
So I loved theatre and all that as well. I suppose lighting generally is that kind of mix of the tech and the artistic. You know, it was one of the things that appeals to me. But TV in particular appealed to the nerd in me. I love the technology.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's it. And it was, I don't know, I suppose there was a bit of a mystique about TV, you know, on a tailwheel kind of thing, but it always, I was always more one for sitting behind a console or drawing plans or whatever than it was up a ladder. So TV kind of lent itself to that as well.
Looking back over your varied career, are there some highlights or some memorable moments that you could share with us?
It's hard to pick out specific moments. You know, I remember starting in RTE, for example, and doing the first Late Late Show, which was like their big show. And you know, it wouldn't be one for getting overly excited, but I remember the theme music starting and hearing it in the studio and kind of going, "This is real," you know. And then doing, you know, big national events, you know, international events, Olympics, you know, shows that I wanted to do for a long time, like we did Ireland's Got Talent and so on. But I think more than those, it's the little moments, you know. It's doing a small show that you haven't really considered hugely until you got there, and you maybe find that you know, there's a group of amazing musicians playing, and it's that moment where you find yourself watching the show rather than actually working on it, that you know it's special. I remember being in the Point Depots, it was at the time, listening to Sinead O'Connor rehearse one time, which was one of the standout moments for me, just where I stood back and realised, you know what, we work in a very special industry, that we get to witness this firsthand, that many people don't.
What do you most love about your work?
I love a few things about it. I love the variety. Although I trained as an engineer, I couldn't see me ever being an engineer sitting in an office behind a computer all day.
You're a creative engineer.
A creative engineer, and that's one of the good things about the industry, is it gets that balance between the artistic, the creative side, and the technical, you know, both of which I enjoy. And that thing of working with creative people, it's very special. Creative people can be very engaging, and there's boundless enthusiasm in our industry that is always infectious, and it's very hard to walk away from something like that. Yeah.
Ireland's a very special place to work, as many people will say. What for you, what do you enjoy about working and being in Ireland?
Yeah, Ireland's great. I made a conscious decision to come home and base my career in Ireland, and that's worked really well for me, thankfully, but that's partly due to the people here. There's a brilliant creative industry here, and that's probably why the film industry and all has taken off so well here. There's quite a small community of people working in the industry here in Wales, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, but in essence it's a very good thing. There's a very supportive community, but also a very professional one. You know, I think the fact that so many productions come here, you know, shows we stand up with the rest of the world, probably batting away above our weight. So it's a great place to work, but it's also, location-wise, you know, it's a beautiful place to work, and it's a beautiful place to live, and I think being in that kind of positive environment translates into your work. And it's very accessible, so, you know, just because we're here doesn't mean we can't go and work elsewhere, and often do, and, you know, that's a great balance to have.
What were you working on when the pandemic hit? You know, immediately before the first lockdown?
I had a few shows in the offing. One was a quiz show that Will Charles was actually lighting, but I was supplying media servers and crew and so on in the BBC studio. It had actually rigged at the time, and they had to stop. We also had Mastermind coming up and a few other projects. So we had a lot of stuff in the pipeline that has to be paused. Thankfully, most of it's coming back. But it's been a long road waiting for it. I've been very fortunate, I suppose, in two respects. One is, after the initial kind of 3 or 4 months when everything totally locked down, TV was probably one of the first things that started to open up again, and there's been quite a steady bit of work in television. Nowhere near as busy as we would have been, but it's been steady. And then I was also very fortunate that during lockdown I had a few design projects I was working on. So one of the things, we were doing a new exhibition for the Game of Thrones exhibition. Lockdown, I suppose, well, it was a bad thing. It also gave me an opportunity to do that, which I mightn't otherwise have had. I wouldn't have had the time to do it. So I've been very lucky that I've been kept going to some extent.
I know you love living here, but are there any other places in the world that you like visiting or spending time or chilling out?
I like lots of places. I always like London, I always like visiting London, and enjoyed my time there. Even though I did come back, I enjoyed my time there very much and still enjoy going back. I've been very lucky that I've been able to work, you know, around the world in different places, but to be honest, it goes back to an earlier question, you know, I like being here, and I like Ireland, I like Belfast, I like Dublin particularly. So, you know, I'm happy here, but given that you can, you know, go and visit those other places and work those other places.